Look at this map here. This map is basically everything you need to know about the geographical history of Chinese civilization. It's not about China's geopolitics, which we'll talk about in another video, but about the geographical history. In other words, how Chinese civilization developed geographically. The first thing you need to keep in mind is that Chinese civilization will develop around these three rivers here, which are the three main rivers of China. The Yangtze River, the Yellow River, and the Pearl River. These rivers make this entire plain in China extremely fertile. They give it an abundant food supply, which also explains why Chinese civilization has always had a large population since ancient times. In addition, back then, in ancient times, they built a series of canals that connected these rivers with smaller rivers, which also provided great mobility. So they not only had easy mobility from the eastern coast, being able to connect the interior of China to the west, but also from north to south. This not only made food production easier, but also internal migration, trade, and technological development. But the vital point is this map here. For thousands and thousands of years, the biggest problem for the Chinese was the peoples who came from the interior of Asia, who were nomads. They came from the interior of Asia and attacked this main region of China, which we call the Chinese geopolitical core, or the Han core. After all, most of the Chinese population is of the Han ethnicity, although it's not the only Chinese ethnicity, and they would go there and conquer the cities, plunder, enslave, and terrorize people in every possible way. So the Chinese always had to develop strategies to deal with these nomadic peoples, and the solution was basically simple: to have buffer states between them and the nomads. And for that, they often conquered, or co-opted, or bribed kings who were in the Xinjiang or Tibet region to prevent these peoples from the Asian interior from reaching the Chinese geopolitical core. And for thousands and thousands of years, that was their strategy. For more than 2,000, almost 3,000 years, it was simple. That was the strategy, until around the 16th century when the Europeans finally arrived. They reached the Chinese coastline and things changed. The arrival of the Europeans was truly revolutionary, because the Europeans not only had a culture completely different from what the Chinese were used to, but they also had military supremacy and technological superiority. Additionally, they were now imposing a kind of military pressure unfamiliar to the Chinese, who for millennia had faced land enemies from Asia's interior. And now, it was a naval enemy that they weren't used to and didn't really know how to deal with. After all, the entire Chinese coastline, these seas were completely under Chinese control. There was no one to compete with them. But with the Europeans' arrival, everything fell apart, and they couldn't handle this new threat. Then, in the 19th century, this finally started the process of breaking down Chinese civilization, starting with the Opium War, when the military power of the British Empire used its industrial strength, its technological strength, its military strength, and defeated the Chinese Empire with embarrassing ease, leading them to what the Chinese call the Century of Humiliation. This started a gradual process of weakening Chinese civilization that would lead to the end of the dynastic period.